This video has three predictions. The first two are pretty quick. Number one, the Metacritic score for First Light will settle at around 85, give or take. And if I'm wrong, you get a free pass to mock me in the comments. I think that's fair. Number two, I think First Light will have about 20 million players before this generation is up. And lastly, number three, the reason for this video, my pie in the sky prediction, I think Sony makes a play to acquire IO Interactive. And if they aren't, well, I think they should be. With the release of First Light, I think we've just heard the starting gun to the next big acquisition in the industry. It might sound a little nuts at first, but just stick with me for a second. In the late 90s, Marvel was kind of broke, and they sold the rights to tons of characters like X-Men, Fantastic Four, the Hulk, and Spider-Man. Don't worry, it's still the same 007 video, just give me a second. Sony bought the movie rights to Spider-Man for about $7 million and made some good, some great, and some plain okay Spider-Man films. Fast forward 16 years, and Marvel is now cosplaying as a money printer and wants to add some zeros by introducing Spider-Man into the MCU. Now, I'm going to distill a few years of legal back and forth here into a couple of sentences because we've all got things to go and do. But basically, Marvel went to Sony and asked really nicely if they could use Spider-Man in their movies, and Sony said, sure, if you let us use the game rights. And everyone lived happily ever after. The MCU went on to make billions of dollars with the inclusion of their biggest hero, and Sony have sold today about 50 million units of Spider-Man on PlayStation, which Marvel still benefited from, by the way. I think a lot of people miss this. They were getting 25% cut of every game sold and up to 50% from bundled consoles in the PlayStation 4 generation. The point being that Sony turned those Spider-Man movie rights from the 90s into not only a multi-decade relationship with Marvel, but used the subsequent game rights to entice then independent Insomniac Games to finally become a first-party studio after nearly 30 years of working together for the criminally low fee of $229 million, which it just doesn't get spoken about enough. It's one of the best acquisitions in history, not just gaming. Now, it's fair to ask, Drake, what the hell does any of this have to do with James Bond, IO, and Amazon? Well, this time around, Sony isn't as lucky to own any movie rights from a fire sale in the late 90s, but they do have leverage in a few other ways, some of which I think are stronger than what led to that Marvel deal. Most acquisitions start with a ton of need, but the best ones close with a ton of trust. The Marvel deal existed almost entirely on need and not much else, whereas the potential Bond deal that I'm thinking about has both needs and trust in spades. So how does this all happen? Well, firstly, the stuff I'm going to go through is like nitty-gritty industry stuff that I read about and watch, and I wouldn't blame you for double checking any of it because who the hell reads this stuff? But Sony saved Bond. Sony is directly responsible for the most successful era of Bond by stepping in to save production with not only cash injections, but by co-financing and distributing all of the Daniel Craig era movies while MGM was going bankrupt, meaning there's an existing relationship there with 2 decades of trust between Eon Productions, Amazon MGM, and Sony. Part of that trust and relationship is uniquely tied to my second point, Amy Pascal. She is this kind of golden bullet in all of this that directly ties every vertical of bigger companies together. She was the co-chair of Sony Pictures between 2006 and 2015. She was the executive who personally managed the Bond relationship for so many years, and she is the exact executive who brokered the Marvel and Spider-Man deal. And now her company, Pascal Pictures, is co-producing Bond 26. There is no better bridge between all of these companies than Amy Pascal if Sony actually wanted to acquire IO. It's at this point someone might want to comment, Drake, why doesn't Amazon just acquire IO? They got the money. I genuinely don't have anything in the script or a deeper answer than anything Amazon has tried with gaming has basically failed. They have poured billions into studios and game engines and IPs and different projects to have almost all of it fall completely flat, which segues nicely into the next point. Sony have done this before, not just with Spider-Man, they've done it all. They can point directly to that Spider-Man and Disney deal though and say, we have experience doing this. Look at the success. You guys aren't good at this. We are. Let us take it from here. You do the movies, we do the games, and we all win. And if Amazon have any self-awareness, which is very debatable, they should be completely okay with this arrangement because they want Bond to be a staple in pop culture like the MCU and Harry Potter, and there's few better ways to bolster your brand than letting Sony, of all places, take the reins on a third-person action game. Memes aside, it's kind of their thing. But what about IO in all of this? Well, IO absolutely get a say regarding their own destiny. They are independent after all. But Hakan Abrik, the CEO of IO, has explicitly said numerous times that they expect First Light to be the start of a trilogy. And this is where it's important to remember this industry is getting more expensive and volatile by the minute, even more so if you're the dying breed of a AAA indie. Another consideration for Abrak might stem from Build a Rocket Boy and their debut title, mind's eye. It's not impossible to see how your first foray into publishing someone else's game might spook you when the result is mind's eye. Despite that, it wouldn't be bad business for Abrak to at least consider a favorable agreement. IO ushering in a new era of Bond for the next decade, Hitman being as strong as ever, multiple studios opening, and a new fantasy IP in production certainly wouldn't hurt them in negotiations, most likely allowing them to keep a lot of autonomy. But I'm not naive. I'm aware that autonomy only exists as long as the studio is doing well and doesn't cause headaches looking at you, Bungie. Any real deterrent on IO's part will no doubt stem from their rocky experience with ownership in the past. I recommend the incredible Hitman documentary from NoClip to see just how rocky it was, but in short, IO's current independence is from the ashes of Square Enix's ownership that once had them teetering on the brink of collapse. But Sony and IO have always played nice, and it's here again where I think Sony gets to play the trust card. They've had a partnership with IO for years, and their games have always been prominent in PlayStation advertising and marketing. If Abrak was looking for consolidation and security, there's few better options than Sony. I do think it's at this point where some people will go to the comments and drag up studio closures from Sony, but it's important to remember the context of those closures. IO is a versatile and experienced studio that would fit nicely with Sony's recent strategic shift to single-player exclusivity, while the studios that were closed were mostly working on unproven products, dying markets, or $300 million moonshots on veteran teams. Sometimes those bets give you the finals and Arc Raiders, sometimes they give you Concord. So what do you think? Is this insane, or could we see Sony replicate their Spider-Man strategy all over again? Tell me down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.